You know, you see a frog maybe sitting on a lily pad or a dragonfly zipping past, and well, they just seem like part of the scenery, don't they?
Right, just background noise almost.
Exactly. But what if these small lives are actually flashing warning signs, big red lights for the health of our environment?
Mm.
You're here because you want the important info quickly and thoroughly, and that's exactly what we're doing today.
We are diving deep into, yeah, frogs, salamanders, and dragonflies. And we need to see them as more than just, pretty wildlife.
More than just nice to look at.
Precisely. They're acting like these really quite sophisticated biological sensors. They're
Wow.
telling us about our water quality and, honestly, the health of the whole ecosystem.
So how are we approaching this? What's the source material?
We've pulled together research from various places, information from local stormwater task forces, university research papers, conservation district reports, trying to get a well-rounded picture.
Okay, a multifaceted view.
Yeah, looking at what their presence, or maybe more importantly, their absence really means.
Yeah. Right. So no dry, dusty reports read aloud here. Our mission, then, is to really unpack why these particular creatures are so sensitive to their environment.
And what that sensitivity tells us about the health of the world around all of us.
And we'll probably hit some surprising facts along the way, I imagine.
I think so, definitely.
Okay, let's start there then. This idea of indicator species. Why amphibians, frogs, salamanders? What makes them special in this role?
It's a great concept, indicator species. Think of them as nature's early warning system. Their health, or sometimes the lack of it, signals the condition of their whole habitat.
Like the classic canary in the coal mine analogy.
Exactly like that, yeah. And when we talk amphibians, we mean frogs, toads, salamanders, newts, the whole group. The name itself, amphibian, actually tells us a lot.
Oh yeah, how so?
It comes from Greek, amphi, meaning both,
Yeah.
and bios, meaning life.
Ah, both lives, living in water and on land.
Exactly. Reflecting their life cycle, often starting in water and moving to land. Here in Oregon, for example, you might hear the Pacific tree frog or see a rough-skinned newt wandering through the forest. Both classic amphibians.
Okay, both lives make sense. They bridge those two environments. But why are they so tuned in? Why are they the ones sending these signals about environmental health?
Well, several things make them incredibly sensitive. Firstly, many are ectothermic.
Cold-blooded, basically.
Right. They rely on the environment to regulate their body temperature. So
Yeah.
big swings in water temperature. That directly impacts their metabolism, their activity levels, everything.
Okay, so temperature is one factor.
A big one. And secondly, this is really key. Many breathe partly or even entirely through their skin.
Through their skin.
Yeah, it's called cutaneous respiration. Their skin is permeable, allowing gases and water to pass through,
Yeah.
which is great for survival in damp places, but
But it also means pollutants get in easily.
exactly. There's no filter.
But
Whatever's in the water can be absorbed directly into their system. And get this, some salamander species don't even have lungs as adults. They rely completely on breathing through their skin and the lining of their mouths.
wow, no lungs at all. It's like they're wearing their environment. That really paints a picture of vulnerability. Anything else?
Their complex life cycle is another big piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
Most go through metamorphosis, right? From an aquatic larva, like a tadpole, to a terrestrial or semi-aquatic adult.
Right, the tadpole to frog transformation.
And that whole process is incredibly delicate. It's highly sensitive to environmental conditions. Poor water quality, pesticides, even slight temperature changes can disrupt metamorphosis, leading to deformities or just failure to develop.
So multiple sensitive points in their life.
Absolutely. Think about the spring peeper. Tiny little frog, maybe an inch long. You find them in woodlands near water.
They're the ones with that high-pitched call in early spring.
That's them. They have this distinct X mark on their back. They need clean water for their tadpole stage, and then as adults, they're eating insects. Their whole life depends on a healthy environment.
That X mark is a good thing to look out for. Okay, so they're sensitive indicators. Let's talk about their role. How does a frog, say, fit into the bigger ecosystem picture, the food web?
Oh, they play multiple roles, and it changes throughout their life. As tadpoles, they're mostly herbivores.
Eating plants?
Yeah, mainly algae. They're like little underwater lawnmowers, scraping algae off rocks and plants.
Mhm.
This actually helps keep algae growth in check, preventing waterways from getting choked up.
Okay, so controlling algae as youngsters. What about when they grow up?
Then they become predators.
Yeah.
Adult frogs eat a huge number of insects. Mosquitoes, flies, beetles, spiders, you name it. They're really important for controlling insect populations.
Including insects that might carry diseases. like mosquitoes.
Definitely. They help keep those populations down. Adult dragonflies sometimes get called mosquito hawks for the same reason. Frogs are doing that job too.
So tadpoles, algae control. Adult frogs equals pest control. That's quite a contribution. But they're not just predators, are they? They get eaten too.
Oh, absolutely. They are a critical food source for so many other animals.
Hmm.
Fish eat tadpoles and frogs. Snakes eat frogs. Birds like herons eat frogs. Mammals like raccoons. The list goes on.
So they're a key link in the food chain.
A really vital link. If frog populations decline, it has a ripple effect. All those predators lose a major food source. It disrupts the whole system.
That interconnectedness is crucial. Okay, let's shift gears slightly to dragonflies. We mentioned them as mosquito hawks. How do they fit into this picture as water quality indicators?
Dragonflies are fascinating and, yes, very good indicators, largely because of their life cycle, much like amphibians. They lay eggs in or near water,
Right.
and those eggs hatch into aquatic nymphs, sometimes called larvae or naiads. This nymph stage, this is where they spend most of their lives.
Underwater, how long are we talking?
It varies, but for some larger species, it can be up to 5 years, living underwater as a nymph.
5 years. Wow. That's a long time to be submerged. What are they doing down there?
They are voracious predators. They have this amazing extendable lower jaw, like something out of a sci-fi movie, that shoots out to grab prey.
Seriously, what do they eat?
Mosquito larvae, for sure.
Yeah.
Other aquatic invertebrates, worms, sometimes even small tadpoles or fish, if they can catch them. They're hunters.
Okay, 5 years as an underwater hunter. So their presence must tell us something about the water they're living in for all that time.
Exactly. That's the key indicator part. Dragonfly nymphs are generally very sensitive to water pollution. Things like pesticides, heavy metals, low oxygen levels.
Yeah.
They just can't tolerate it.
So if you find healthy dragonfly nymphs in a stream or pond,
It's a really good sign that the water quality is relatively good. They need clean, well-oxygenated water to survive that long underwater phase.
and then they eventually become the flying adults we see.
Right. When the nymph is ready, it crawls out of the water, usually onto a plant stem or a rock. Its exoskeleton splits down the back, and the adult dragonfly emerges. It has to pump fluid into its wings to expand them, let them dry, and then it takes flight.
An incredible transformation. So both the long-lived nymph and the adult are tied to that aquatic environment. Double indicators almost.
In a way, yes. The nymph tells you about water quality directly over years, and the presence of adults implies successful emergence, which requires a suitable aquatic habitat.
Okay, we've established they're sensitive. Let's talk about the dark side. What actually happens when water quality goes down? What are the concrete consequences for these animals and maybe for the wider ecosystem?
The impacts on amphibians especially can be visually quite stark. Poor water quality is linked to physical deformities.
Deformities? Like what?
Things like missing limbs, extra limbs, misshapen jaws, eye abnormalities. It's quite disturbing. And beyond deformities, pollution weakens their immune system.
Making them more vulnerable to diseases.
Precisely. Remember that permeable skin. Chemical contaminants can disrupt the natural community of microbes living on their skin microbiome, which normally helps protect them. Weakened defenses mean higher rates of fungal infections, viruses, parasites.
That sounds awful. Are there documented cases of this happening on a large scale, a sort of environmental catastrophe?
Unfortunately, yes. There was a really grim event in Peru back in 2016 along the Coda River.
What happened there?
Officials and locals found an estimated 10,000 dead frogs. Critically endangered Titicaca water frogs, specifically, just dead along about 30 miles of the river.
10,000? That's staggering. What caused it?
Subsequent investigations pointed strongly towards pollution, specifically heavy metals like lead and mercury, likely runoff from illegal mining operations in the area, combined with untreated sewage.
A combination punch. That just hammers home how vulnerable they are to what we put in the water.
It really does. A tragic, large-scale example of direct mortality from pollution.
And thinking beyond the direct deaths, like those frogs in Peru, what are the wider ecological ripple effects when these indicator species decline or disappear?
The knock-on effects can be huge. Take the tadpoles role, for instance. If you lose tadpoles because of pollution...
No more algae grazers.
Right. You can get excessive algal blooms, thick mats of algae covering the water. When that algae dies and decomposes, the bacteria doing the decomposing use of dissolved oxygen in the water.
Leading to low oxygen.
Dead zones.
Exactly. Creating hypoxic conditions where fish and other aquatic life can't survive. Then think about losing the adult frogs and dragonflies.
Insect predators.
Yeah. Insect populations, including mosquitoes and other potential disease vectors, can explode without those natural controls.
So potentially more pests, more disease risk for humans and other
It's
animals?
a definite possibility. And then there's the disruption up the food chain. Losing frogs means less food for snakes, birds, mammals. It changes the whole structure and nutrient flow within that ecosystem. It really illustrates how pulling one thread can unravel a lot. Is this decline something localized, or are we seeing it globally?
Oh, it's absolutely a global phenomenon.
Eh,
And the statistics are, frankly, alarming.
how alarming.
Well, scientists estimate that nearly 200 amphibian species may have gone extinct just in recent decades. Thousands more are currently threatened with extinction.
200 species gone. That's huge.
It is. A major assessment back in 2004 found that nearly one-third of the more than 8,000 known amphibian species were at risk. And the trend hasn't reversed. In the U.S. alone, studies suggest amphibian populations are declining at an average rate of about 3.79% per year.
Almost 4% per year, year after year. That adds up incredibly fast. What's driving this decline on such a massive scale?
It's sadly a combination of factors, a kind of death by a thousand cuts scenario.
Hmm.
Habitat destruction and fragmentation is probably the biggest single driver.
Yeah.
Wetlands drained, forests cleared.
Taking away their homes.
Exactly. Then there are infectious diseases, like the chytrid fungus, which has devastated amphibian populations worldwide. Pesticides and pollution, as we've discussed, are major contributors.
What else?
Invasive species are a big problem, too. For example, the American bullfrog, introduced to places like Oregon and other parts of the West, outcompetes native frogs for food and space, and even eats them.
Ah, the bullfrog issue. I've heard about that.
Climate change is another stressor. It alters rainfall patterns, temperature regimes affecting breeding cycles and habitat suitability. And in some parts of the world, overharvesting for the pet trade or for food still puts pressure on certain species.
Wow. It's a whole barrage of threats hitting them simultaneously. It really underscores that interconnectedness you mentioned earlier. A change here, a chemical there.
Yeah.
It all adds up. You mentioned a specific salamander in North Carolina.
Yes, the Neuse River water dog. It's a
Yeah.
large, fully aquatic salamander, and it's now facing potential extinction.
And what's the cause there?
Primarily, it seems to be habitat degradation in the Neuse and Tarpamlico river basins, which is pretty much its only home. This is driven by urban development, increasing runoff and sedimentation, and also agricultural pollution, like fertilizer and pesticide runoff.
So, a local example of these broader pressures pushing a species towards the brink. Okay, the picture is serious. But we don't want to just leave people feeling helpless. What can actually be done? What are the practical steps to protect amphibians and, by extension, our water quality?
There's definitely action we can take, both individually and collectively. First and foremost is protecting the habitats they already have.
Preserving wetlands, forests, stream banks.
Absolutely. Both the aquatic habitats where they breed and the terrestrial habitats where many adults live, and crucially, ensuring there are safe ways for them to move between these areas, migration corridors.
Okay, protect what's left. What about pollution?
Preventing pollution at the source is key. We all need to be much more careful about what goes down drains and onto the land. That means keeping chemicals, insecticides, pesticides, herbicides, cleaning products well away from water bodies and anywhere they might wash into them.
What about runoff from roads or construction?
Big sources. Preventing oil, grease, and excess sediment from washing off pavement and construction sites into storm drains and streams is vital. Leaving wetland areas undisturbed helps filter water naturally.
And things people do around their homes.
Simple things add up. Properly disposing of pharmaceuticals don't flush them. Using fertilizers and pesticides sparingly, if at all, on lawns and gardens. Maintaining septic systems properly. Even picking up trash near waterways helps.
It sounds like a lot of small actions could make a collective difference. What about on a bigger scale? Community efforts.
Restoring and maintaining healthy vegetation along stream banks is really important. Diverse native plants provide shade, cover, and food insects for amphibians and dragonflies. Managing invasive species, like removing bullfrogs where they're harming native species, is also part of the picture.
Are there ways for people listening to get directly involved?
Often, yes. Many areas have volunteer opportunities for things like amphibian monitoring programs. You might go out at certain times of year to listen for frog calls or look for egg masses. In Oregon, for example, groups like the Wetlands Conservancy or Metro sometimes run these kinds of citizen science projects.
So people can contribute directly to tracking populations and understanding trends.
Exactly. It's valuable data and a great way to connect with the local environment.
It feels like the underlying message is that protecting these creatures isn't just about the frogs or the dragonflies themselves, is it?
Not at all. It's fundamentally about protecting the health of the ecosystems that we also depend on. Clean water, functioning food webs, biodiversity. These things are essential for our own well-being. There's that quote from Ansel Adams about wild places.
About needing places where nature is undisturbed.
Yeah, about the importance of being able to experience these pristine environments. Protecting these sensitive indicators is part of ensuring those healthy, functioning environments persist for their sake and ours.
Okay, so if we had to boil it down, the key takeaway is these small creatures, frogs, salamanders, dragonflies, they're much more than they appear.
Far more. There are vital signs, early warnings, indicators telling us critical information about the health of our water and our environment as a whole.
Which leads to a question for everyone listening, right?
Definitely. Take a look around your local area. Do you see frogs? Do you hear them?
Hmm.
Are dragonflies buzzing around your local pond or stream? Or are they absent?
And what might that presence or that absence be telling you about the health of your own backyard, your own community's environment?
It's definitely food for thought.
Absolutely. And maybe it leaves us with this final thought to ponder. If the decline of these creatures, which seem pretty tough in some ways, is sounding such a clear alarm, what other changes, maybe less visible ones, are happening in our environment that we really need to start paying closer attention to?
A crucial question. Perhaps it's motivation to look into local water quality reports or see what conservation efforts are happening nearby. You might find ways to help, and you'll certainly learn more about the world right outside your door.